Our Shared Ocean podcast brings you stories of lived experience from across the world as part of Ireland's response to the environmental and economic challenges facing many small island developing states. These proud island nations are on the front line in tackling climate change issues and are supported by Ireland in this critical battle by the Our Shared Ocean programme, a funding initiative by the Government of Ireland delivered by Irish Aid and the Marine Institute.
Hello everybody, good afternoon from Ireland and good morning to Jamaica. Today we're heading towards the Caribbean Sea to find out about the work of the National Fisheries Authority in Jamaica and how Iceland and Ireland are playing a part in the growth and development of the Jamaican aquaculture industry. My name is David O'Sullivan, Programme Manager for Our Shared Ocean, a funding initiative to build marine research partnerships between Ireland and the small island developing states. There are 26 such island nations in the Caribbean, each with a different personality, but with shared environmental and marine issues and threats. So Our Shared Ocean has worked with both our guests for this episode of our podcast over the last few months in order to facilitate travel and mobility grants. And I'm very pleased to welcome both to the Our Shared Ocean podcast today to tell their story. Firstly, hailing from the capital of Spanish Town in the parish of St. Catherine, Leanne Bennett has been an aquaculturist since 2009 and has spent the last 15 years at the National Fisheries Authority in Jamaica, where she's now an acting senior research officer. She emphasizes, "I didn't find aquaculture, aquaculture found me." She's undertaking a master's, which is looking at the effect of water quality on the mangrove oysters, and is currently enrolled in Holar University in Iceland. So please welcome Mrs. Leanne Morris Bennett. Hello, Leanne.
Hi, David. How are you?
Very good and delighted, and we can hear you perfectly now. And our second guest is
Great.
Professor David Benheim, is a fish behaviour specialist in the Department of Aquaculture and Fish Biology at Holar University in Iceland, primarily interested in aquaculture, but also in evolutionary biology and ecology. And his role in this is supervising Leanne's master's project. So welcome to you, David.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Nice to
Guys,
meet
I'm
you.
delighted you could both be here. We've had a couple of tech issues over the last couple of hours, scheduling issues over the last days and weeks and months, but we're here now. I'm delighted to have you both. So maybe Leanne, we'll start with you. How are you doing today, first of all? And can you tell us a little bit about life in Jamaica, maybe?
I'm doing good. I am currently in Iceland, but life in Jamaica is pretty warm. It's pretty warm. And it's pretty good sometimes. You know, most days it's a bit busy in terms of traffic in the morning and evening, but in the daytime it's pretty good. And it's lots of sunshine and lots of
And
good
tell it.
people to mingle and meet with.
Very good. So there's about 3 million people, give or take, that live on the island of Jamaica. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. We are undergoing a census now, though, so we'll hear the latest numbers shortly.
Okay, very good. And I wonder, how does those populations impact in the marine environment and in the environment of Jamaica per se? Do you think there's overcrowding or issues like that?
I don't necessarily think there is overcrowding. I know that the Jamaican population has increased over the few years. One thing for certain, though, is that Jamaicans love their fish. We love marine fish, especially. You will probably hear that parrot is synonymous with Jamaicans because that's one of our favorite fish to eat, but we also eat snappers. We do freshwater fish. Currently, we produce freshwater fish in Jamaica, tilapia to be exact. And people love both. But we are trying our very best to see how best we can supply that demand with our local resources. Aquaculture, of course, is I think the mode and the way that we should go. And so we're doing a lot to try and improve that through different aspects. But we'll talk about that as we go further.
We will surely get into that as we go further. I suppose I'm just trying to get a sense or an idea of life on the island. Our Shared Ocean has worked a little bit with some of the islands within the Caribbean and indeed further afield already, and I'm just trying to get a sense of these shared environmental issues that a lot of islands have, maybe a lot of Caribbean islands have specifically, but also a lot of island nations, that developing nations that are island states, there's certain, shared environmental problems, economic problems that they can have. And I wondered if you could give us a sense of maybe some of the issues that are facing Jamaica at the moment.
Right. So one of the issues that we are definitely facing, of course, is climate change. So what used to be no longer is. We are having sporadic rainfall seasons. We are having drier times or droughts, longer droughts. We also have other entities, or so that uses the land. There is competition for land, of course, for agriculture, and of course housing and just general development in general. There is also the water quality issues that we have to deal with, because and I'm sure it's something that is known. We've had a few incidences in the last couple of weeks where you've probably heard a fish kill or two. So the changing climate, of course, contributes to that, as well as probably other entities who may use the water resource for other things. So like other small island developing states, we do share some of those challenges experienced with regard, especially to climate change, and with sea level rising, coastal areas are getting smaller. So those definitely are some things that we experience. We are not immune to it.
Would you say there's increased competition maybe on natural resources?
I do believe so, because with a growing nation and with persons wanting to, we are ambitious people. Jamaicans are extremely ambitious. And so one of the things is, yes, we want to have our own. We want to try and be impactful and build wealth and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with building wealth. But it is just that we need to do it in a sustainable manner. So there are some initiatives in place. I know that there have been announcements about making sure that development is done, but with the ecology and the area in mind. So we're just waiting to see what happens when those plans are in place, or new plans, I should say.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. Very good. And we look forward to hearing about it. I guess also then that, it's one of the reasons aquaculture is important, because if there is increased competition, natural resources, then if you can fundamentally manage and farm your own marine species, for example, which is essentially what aquaculture is, then you are in a stronger position maybe to alleviate some of those pressures on the resources.
Right.
So tell us. So I guess that's, your projects are specifically involved in aquaculture for those kinds of reasons. So maybe do you want to tell us a little bit about that, or how that all started for you?
Well, for me, before I get to how that all started, I forgot to mention that there are a few fun facts I wanted people to know about Jamaica.
Oh yeah, you did. Will I share your presentation? I'm very
Yeah,
sorry.
sure you can. You sure can.
I sure can. 1 second. So, banners, that's it.
So just to give everybody an idea of where Jamaica is, we are part of Central America, located in the area called the Caribbean. And so smack dab right in the middle, right where you see the other islands surrounding it, right there is Jamaica.
Very good.
Right. So we are part of what is called the Greater Antilles, which is made up of Cuba, Jamaica, Cayman, Puerto Rico, and of course, Haiti and the Dominican Republic, which makes up Hispaniola. I'm a little bit nervous.
Well, certainly don't be. Certainly don't be.
So I certainly maybe slip up a little bit, but yes, that's it. So those are the islands that make up the Greater Antilles: Cuba, Hispaniola, which is made up of Haiti and Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, and Puerto Rico. So
You actually had, and I'm sorry to say this, you actually had Hispaniola written down. I removed it because I spoke to someone from Haiti just last week, and they rejected the name and the use of Hispaniola.
I see. Well, I mean, from what we learn in school, that's what we've always been told. So that is
100%.
why. So I can also understand, yeah. So that's what we learn as kids, and it's something that has stuck with all of us. But I can understand too where that person is coming from.
And I only learned this last week, so I mean, it's a learning curve.
And I'm
It's
learning
huge.
this today.
So the motto of Jamaica is "Out of many, one people."
Yes. So basically, David, in simpler terms, just as how you see you and David here on the screen, so we'll see people like you and they speak like me. Pretty much that's what it means. It means that no matter yes, literally. So no matter where you're from, you will find a plethora of different kinds of Jamaicans: Chinese, Indian Jamaicans, Black Jamaicans, white Jamaicans, Cuban Jamaicans, German Jamaicans. But for us, it's not necessarily race, it's just a plethora of people who are just different in cultures, but we all make a great big melting pot to create Jamaica to be the island that it is, island of sun, fun, and of course, education, intelligence, and agriculture and aquaculture. So, yeah.
Okay, excellent. We'll
Most
go to
people
your
say
next
sun,
slide.
sea, sand. Jamaica is more than just sun, sea, and sand. So, some fun facts. Of course, the capital of Jamaica is Kingston. We are mainly a Christian society, but we have a number of religions practiced there as well, but Christianity being the majority. We love ackee and sauce, which is actually our national dish. Now, most persons will remember Jamaica as the birthplace of the famous Bob Marley, but we also are the birthplace of Rastafarianism, the birthplace of music genres such as reggae and ska, and we also have a heavy, heavy influence on hip hop. So the story in a nutshell, somebody from Jamaica left here, went to the States and started DJing per se. And as a result, hip hop was born, I should say. I don't know if that's me being too gracious, but that's the story. But that is a whole other conversation, which most persons, if you just do a simple search on the internet, you will definitely see the documentaries discussing that.
Very interesting. Possibly for a different podcast, though. Although I would love to be involved in that podcast too when it happens. But for now, now we'll keep going.
It's a totally different podcast. No, when it comes to aquaculture, we, as I said before, we love our marine fish. And so as of September 2023, we were able to at least produce 9,725.89 metric tons, valued at about 132 million Jamaican dollars or 805,000 euros. And then for aquaculture, we did 438.3 metric tons, which is part of the goal to try and produce at least 1,000 metric tons. And this 1,000 metric tons would have been valued at 441.3 million Jamaican dollars or 2.6 million euros. If I have that correctly, hopefully. So,
yeah, okay.
Pretty much we are trying to drive persons' interest into making sure that not that we switch from marine to aquaculture, but that there is an alternative to marine fish. Because with the number of us on the island, the demand is heavy. There is, of course, the potential for overfishing, which we are experiencing now. And so we're trying to encourage persons to not only just consume marine fish, but there is an alternative. Aquaculture is here, tilapia is here, and therefore it's a great fish to eat. We are going on a campaign right now to try and encourage more persons to eat tilapia. We do other species, and this, of course, is under the whole umbrella of the National Fisheries Authority, because we're the entity that is charged with managing and monitoring the development of our fisheries. So other species that we do include ornamentals, and of course we have a mariculture arm where we're looking at oyster production. And that's a part of my story and how I ended up here.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. So what's the problem? Sure, we have sun, sea, and sand. And as I keep emphasizing, Jamaicans love our fish. No matter where we go, if we can get it, we will take it. However, there is, of course, increased demand, there is climate change, there's pollution, there's overfishing. And so, how are we going to try and alleviate the situation? How do we ensure that we preserve our resources for generations to come? We can eat so much, we can do so much, but then at the end of the day, will there be any left for those to come after us? Because we're not going to all be here forever. So, seeing that this is a problem, as well as understanding that the world tends to suffer from this problem in general, and there is the whole big picture of the sustainable developmental goals, right? Which is to ensure that we have all that we need to survive, because the saying is there's no planet, meaning there's no other planet but here. And so we have to take care of what we have. So for us here, our concern is sustainable developmental goal number 14, which is life below water. I would say, of course, responsible consumption and production too, which is goal 12, as well as adding to goal 2, which is zero hunger, which means that in order for us to combat hunger, we'd have to make sure that we have enough resources to do so. But particularly goals 14 and 12 is something that we hold near and dear to us.
Okay.
So for Jamaica, we have something called Vision 2030, which in a nutshell states that Jamaica wants to be the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business, right? And if we are to look on our developmental goals for Vision 2030, we're looking at goal 4, which is Jamaica having a healthy natural environment. And of course, we want to be able to sustainably manage and use the environment that we have. And of course, to reduce the risk and adapt to climate change. So in a nutshell, what we want to do, we want to make sure that what we have, or natural resources that we have, is healthy. What we do with it is to do sustainable development and to make sure that at the end of the day, what we do can allow us to still maintain ourselves, but at the same time maintain the environment we have. So, with these goals in mind, then it will dictate what the other entities will do. And so for us at the National Fisheries Authority is where I am from. So David, remember the question that you asked, no? And I can tell you the whole story.
Say again, sorry, Leanne.
David?
Is myself you're trying to reach, Leanne, or the other David? Sorry.
What David are you calling?
I'm looking here at a lovely slide and it's speaking about the National Fisheries Authority. And I suppose, Leanne, you've given us a very good overview of the state of play in Jamaica, where Jamaica wants to go, its relationship with the sea, which is very important, and in the National Fisheries Authority, where you work, and its mission and vision statement to facilitate sustainable development of the Jamaican fisheries sector, including aquaculture.
I'm sorry about that. Are you able to hear me, everybody?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So David, here is the part where we find ourselves. You asked me a question before.
Yes. Tell us about Jamaica.
So I just wanted so I just wanted you to remind me of the question so I can start the story.
Well, I guess I wanted you to tell us, you've given us a very good overview of Jamaica, the marine environment, the relationship of the marine environment to the Jamaican people. But how did you get involved in all this? So you've been working within the National Fisheries Authority now for about 15 years, I believe. You're the acting senior research officer. You're helping to develop aquaculture within Jamaica, and you have now undertaken a master's studies with Holer University in Iceland, which is not a SIDS, just to point out.
Right.
But so you've got that relationship with Iceland already. And our point, just
Yes.
for people listening, our shared ocean has come in and we're helping to facilitate mobility and travel grants for you to get to certain conferences and workshops. But I guess just a look at the overall view of your master's project and what experience you're gaining, maybe from Iceland. David, I understand thank you for your patience till now. You haven't spoken. If you'd like to jump in and maybe, how do you get involved in all this?
All right, David, you want to go first?
You want me to say something about the way we met, or?
Oh yeah, sure. This is my supervisor, guys. My very great supervisor, David Bennett.
Yes, I guess we need to go back to 2019, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
When you started this UNESCO Grow FTP program.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell us about the UNESCO Grow FTP program.
Yeah, this Grow, or Leanne, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the UNESCO Grow FTP program really is an entity that is located here in Iceland that allows for small island developing states to get some experience in fisheries research. They have 4 lines. I happen to be a part of the sustainable aquaculture line. So they have quality management of fish handling and processing. They also have aquatic resource assessment and monitoring and fisheries policy and management. Now, through the National Fisheries Authority, who is the entity to facilitate the sustainable development of Jamaica's fisheries sector, and the entity who also wants to be the model of excellence in capture fisheries and aquaculture management, being employed there from 2009, the opportunity finally came around for us through the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism to be able to be a part of the Grow FTP program. So Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism got the memo to say that there's a course. They pass it on to NFA and they say, okay, those persons who are interested can apply. We applied and I was up for an interview, got through with the interview, or was successful with the interview rather, and in 2018, and then sorry, not in 2018, 2019 was successful with the interview. Forgive my nerves. And then by about September 2019, I left from Jamaica and came to Iceland. And this is where I met David.
So have you been in Iceland since 2018, 2019, or you just go back and forth every now and again?
No, so the program allows you to stay for 6 months in Iceland. So I was here from 2019, September 2019 to around about February 2020, and then we all get to go home.
And you're studying a master's, which is an assessment of water quality effects on the mangrove oyster Crassostrea rhizophorae, if that's pronounced correctly. I think it is. Population, abundance, size, and growth within the rhizophorid red mangrove roots. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and how? Tell us about that in simple English.
Okay, so in simple English, basically, I am assessing the population. I mean, with any research, things do change from time to time. So there has been a bit of adjustment in my topic, but it's still the essence of it is still the same. We still look at the distance from the river because we do have a river source, that runs in a bay that we have called Bowden Bay. And in that bay, river sources, sorry, will run in it. And we wanted to see if the distance from the river through to the end of the inner bay, if there might be any correlation between the population and that distance. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I don't know if it makes, if I hope somebody understands, but yeah, that's it. So how did I get to the course? Um, we'll go straight to David with that. So David, you want to tell him the story?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, we met when you did this 6 months program, the Sustainable Aquaculture specialization line, and then you came up with this idea of studying already at that time the oysters in your country, and the ultimate objective of this was to try to help develop further this oysters industry in Jamaica.
Right.
That is existing, but just maybe not very well developed yet. So you came up with a very ambitious project, and then of course I had to slow you down a little bit. That's the story from the beginning, but that's the reason I accepted to supervise you was you were such an enthusiastic person, and you were willing to help your country, and that's something that I was very sensitive to. And so we started to work together, and this project that you did at that time was a literature review. So you
Yes.
went over the literature, and I sent you to France, actually, if you remember, of course.
Yes.
And you went to this institution to learn about algae culture that is very much linked to this oysters industry.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and then after you left, and after you completed successfully this program, you had in mind to continue, and we kept in touch, and that was the beginning of a very long and difficult journey. And
Long is right. Well,
yeah.
beautiful one, but difficult. Yeah.
And so how you started this master's in aquatic biology in our university, the Holar University, in the Department of Aquaculture and Fish Biology, which is actually a mostly research-based master's. So you just took a few courses, including your favorite topic, that is statistics, of course. And
Everyone's favorite topic.
and then we had to define the research project, which has been actually a pretty tough and long process. And
Yes.
it's such a long story, actually, but a very nice story in the end, that we
It
managed
is.
to
It
define
is.
this topic. I don't know, maybe you want to say a few words about.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question actually to jump in. The Fish and Water is a master's course to understand the correlation between farming, environment, and fish. And I wonder, did anyone want to kind of explain a little bit about that? Is because I've got some notes here, and it discusses topics as osmotic regulation and respiration. And I'm just wondering how a better understanding of the role of water quality can affect aquaculture.
Right. So as anybody would know, that water quality in aquaculture is key to ensuring that you have healthy fish, both in the beginning and, well, throughout, but especially at the beginning when you have fry, for instance, because Jamaica does produce tilapia fry to sell to farmers. So we need to have very good water quality to ensure that we get the amount of fries we need to be sold to fish farmers, that they are sturdy enough to be able to withstand any stresses, including traveling from one point to the next. Because sometimes the distances can be as much as probably 3 hours travel time. I mean, Jamaica is small. From getting from point A to point B might take you about 4 or 5 hours, depending on how fast or how slow you drive it. The slower you go, the longer. But the fact is that there are farms all over, and you need to be able to ensure that your fish are healthy, your fish are well fed, your fish are able to absorb your nutrients, your fish are able to basically be more motile enough. And so water quality plays a huge impact, because if there is even a slight dip in things like dissolved oxygen, if the salinity is off, if the pH is off, then of course you're going to end up losing your fish or having your fish susceptible to disease, especially if you practice a extremely extensive system. For now, Jamaica does semi-intensive. Jamaica doesn't do semi-intensive. We do an extensive kind of system. We don't do intensive, because with intensive system, you're packing more fish in the same area. And of course, you'd have to have you monitor your water quality even more, because the more fish, the more stress, they become susceptible to a lot of things. So that's one.
So that's intensive farming. So there's no intensive farming in around Jamaica. That's when there's huge population or huge numbers of fish in a much smaller area. So you said it's called extensive.
No, we do extensive.
Extensive means there's a bigger area. There's bigger areas used.
No, extensive refers to to the production method. The extensive culture means actually that you don't use any external nutrients. You just put actually your animals in the wild, and you expect the nature to make the job, actually, to feed the animals. And it's especially true for the shellfish, actually, for the oysters. That's the main technique, actually, this extensive production. Just put some oysters in the field, and you let them grow for some months. Of course, there is also a hatchery process that takes place before that.
Right.
In that case, you have to produce some microalgae to feed the small oysters. And after that, when they reach a certain size, you can put them in the field, and you let them grow.
So you kind of are reliant on the environmental conditions and the marine conditions, and so water goes in, water goes out. So fresh water, I suppose the flushing capacity is quite important. Then you want them in bays and areas where waste can be brought out to sea, for example, but they're getting a positive flow of nutrients over them at all times.
Right. So for Jamaica, so David is definitely right. With regards to the Jamaican context, so we do have a feed manufacturer who will produce the feed for the tilapias. So what we do in terms of extensive is that we don't use, as David says, any external instruments to raise the fish. So we stock the ponds according to its carrying capacity. No more. Maybe a little less, depending on if you want the size to increase. And this is in regards to fish, that is tilapia, right? So we will stock them according to the pond's carrying capacity, feed them over 6 months, and once they are ready, then they are reaped. With regards to the oysters too, we have to bear in mind that the area that they are stocked in does have a carrying capacity. I think that's something that can be looked at for Jamaica in the future, but for now, we don't practice any intensive farming. So we just set a few Hansen racks, and for us, we don't have a hatchery just yet. I hope for us to be able to get one soon. But what we do is we capture the spat during the spawning season. So when we capture them during the spawning season, they are able to stick to a substrate. Then what we do is we use recycled tires to do this. Once they attach to the recycled tires now, then we will be able to put them on some strings, what we call culches. So we put them on the strings and we hang them on the Hansen rack. They stay for 3 months, and then we separate them a little bit more so that we can have more space in between and more room for them to grow. They continue to grow for the next 6 months. We don't put any feed in because there's already natural microalgae within the water column for them to feed on. And so that is what we do now. Jamaica's oyster industry is still a bit in its infantile stage. There are a few things that we need to do to develop it even more. And here we come to my project and what it will hopefully achieve. which is to understand the population and why it is that we have a specific population at this point A, versus having a whether little or a lot of population at point X, right? And if we understand that, then it will allow us to better plan for spat collection and hopefully move from spat collection to actually developing hatchery processes for Jamaica, so we don't necessarily have to rely on just the parent material anymore, because with nature you have to rely on the spawning season. If you have a hatchery, then you can pretty much spawn all year round.
Yeah, I would add also that one of the main findings that we got so far is that we were not especially expecting that, but there is another species in this mangrove, and according to our first preliminary statistical analysis, it seems that this population is as abundant as the target species, as our target species. So
right.
That's quite interesting. And
what is the species?
So the
Leanne.
species is the Iceland alatus. So basically, it's a really flat oyster. I don't know if you can bring up the picture to see. Let me see if I can show you the one where I am doing some measurements.
We can go back to speak to these slides again, but we're on the hunt for a picture now of a.
Yeah, we can definitely go through them, because there's a lot to talk about.
My goodness.
So, so sorry. I was prepared. I was prepared. It's the one after. Yes, back. So you see these flat oysters that you're looking at on the screen, where they kind of stick out.
Okay.
On the picture on the left, right? So on the picture on the left, they seem to be very thin. They're almost like razors, like paper. Those oysters are what you call the Iceland alatus.
And are they sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
Are they a farmed species? Are they commercially important or ecologically important, or both?
Well, more ecologically important. I mean, people do eat them. I've been told, because I don't eat that oyster. I've been told it has a little bit more robust flavor. My favorite oysters are the Crassostrea rhizophorae, which is the flatter ones, the ones that kind of look like a cup, which is to the front of the root there, with all the red markings on it. Those oysters are milder. Those are the ones that we farm. But the Iceland alatus is more of an ecologically important species, to be honest with you.
Can I just ask a question about natural habitat then of these species? Like you're talking about the mangrove oyster, presumably they live in and around mangroves, and I'm just wondering, would the fishing of those lead to inadvertently the destruction or the removal of mangrove ecosystem?
Well, in all honesty, from what I understand in regards to fishing, they do remove them, but they don't remove the entire root. They will probably just take a knife and take them off of the mangrove root itself, and do it for sale, to be honest. I am yet to see somebody removing an entire root of Iceland alatus, to be honest, an entire mangrove root to get Iceland alatus. I know they're eaten. I've never seen it for myself, to be honest. I admit.
Yeah, but I think it's a very, very important point that David just raised, because there are unfortunately some examples of bad management of extensive aquaculture using these mangroves.
That is true.
In particular, the shrimp, production in some countries
Mm-hmm.
that have literally destroyed the mangrove. So that's, yeah, the sustainability of this industry is very important to be taken into account, and that's actually the main point of our of the UNESCO GrowFTP line. That's sustainable aquaculture. So we expect the fellows, after they complete the program, to bring this up to their countries and to start developing the industry, but in the most possible sustainable way possible. Yeah.
And so the farms then that are in and around Jamaica and maybe some other Caribbean islands as well, they
Mm-hmm.
the spat, it doesn't go into it must go into some kind of artificial substrate on which to attach. I don't know if
Well,
we've
yes.
explained that. So it's not going back into mangroves per se, or what do they use? Oh no, you mentioned the rubber tires.
Right, so we use the rubber tires for them to attach on the substrate, and then we build a Hansen rack. And Hansen rack is made of bamboo, really, and durable wood that we put together, and it stays out there for a pretty long while. I know other countries will use things like PVC, or they will develop a cage system that can be used. And as I said before, in its infantile stage, we still use Hansen racks. And this study that I'm doing will also allow me, when I finish, and there are a few things that I hope to be able to do. We can look at moving away from the Hansen racks and looking at different methodologies that we can use to raise or rear these oysters. So because of the experience I am getting here, then I'm able to apply it to my job when I get back home, to be able to research and look into different mechanisms for raising oysters, looking at growth and development and what is needed. And of course, all of this hopefully will lead to using a hatchery in the future to be able to have a sustainable methodology for getting our cup oysters or mangrove oysters.
But there are still some limitations. We still have to be careful because the ecosystem itself has some limits. And even if we grow these oysters artificially on artificial materials, it will just take a lot of nutrients from the ecosystem, and that could impact negatively actually the wide populations and all the species around. So that's the reason why we have to be also very careful and to try to develop this in a most possible sustainable way. And I think your study can contribute to that, just to understand how this natural population develop, what are the water parameters that are important for the two populations, for the two species. Yes. And it seems that it's not the same. So that's also very, very interesting. So it's just preliminary results, but it seems that these two species have actually different requirements in terms of water quality. So all of this will be useful for developing, the industry of oysters.
That's true.
So it's difficult enough to try and establish the correlation between the natural environment and one species, but if you're trying to do it two, and you're saying one is potentially more sensitive than the other, did I hear that? They have different water quality requirements between these two species.
Right. Right.
So that could essentially mean that one is, we say, a little bit more sensitive or needs cleaner water to thrive.
More or less, yes.
Yeah, it's hard to say at the moment, I would say, but
okay.
We just need to better understand.
That yes is preliminary, because you still have some more research to do and statistical analysis in order to give a concrete answer. But all of this just goes to show you the sensitivity of the environment and how much we need to really take care of it, because it's only one planet, one Earth we have.
Yeah, so any type of anthropogenic activities can impact on species in ways that we don't fully understand yet. So yeah, it's hugely important to do that. We've seen that here in Ireland. I'm sure David has seen that in Iceland in some form, and probably in France as well. And so where you're from, I understand, David. So there's different types of techniques and lots of different things. Humans have had impacts in the marine in all sorts of unassociated ways over the years. So understanding what those things are is what is becoming increasingly important in the face of climate change, I would say, because it's just another stressor on top of, diminishing biodiversity.
Yeah.
Leanne, you have a couple of other slides here. Do you want to just talk through any before we wrap up towards the end, or any parting comments?
We certainly can talk through some of those slides. So, if you can go back to the slide where you saw the lady.
Where?
Way up in 10, I believe. And then we'll just walk through those. Right. So this lady
We've got about
here,
5 or 10 minutes left to go through these.
All right, no problem. So I'll make it very quick. So this lady here that you see, along with the other three, along with the other two slides. So just go through them quickly. And the other one. So a story that I wanted to also emphasize is that the National Fisheries Authority, through the World Bank, is actually in the process of doing a few climate smart projects. And so one of those is to establish oyster production with two groups. So these two groups are Western Supreme Oysters and More. Hi guys, hope you're hearing the podcast. And of course, you have Green Island Fisher Cooperative. I can't leave them out because they've been with me from the very beginning. And we're trying to establish the oyster production that was once there. It's relatively new. And so if the success of this will allow others to see that you can produce oysters sustainably and as a community group. So that's really what it is. So of course I had explained before. No, you can continue. I had explained before how I had gotten here, and this is just the entities that basically were involved, especially with Grow FTP, and the blue highlighted area was a line that I was a part of. Of course, all of that was forces influenced what I do now. So you can continue. So of course, this part would be for David, so I can allow him to go ahead.
Do we really need to go over this? I'm not sure.
It just gives a little bit of a fact.
David, you're in Whole Earth University. You can just give us an overview of the type of work that's happening in Whole Earth at the moment, David.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's actually quite interesting to make the link between Jamaica and Iceland. So I think the only common point is that we are both living in islands. But I think Iceland is 10 times bigger than Jamaica, but still we are much less populated. So I think we are only 400,000 inhabitants at Whole Earth. So this is a very interesting university because it is probably one of the oldest universities in Europe. So you can actually, the place we live, as you can see on the picture, it's a very small village, only 100 to 150 individuals live there. And that's one of the most historical locations with bishopric and educational activities dating back to 1106. And since then, actually, there have been a lot of educational projects, and until this place became official university, so one of very small university in 2006. So we have several departments, including tourism. We have also this equine science and also, of course, this aquaculture and fish biology departments. So we are doing a lot of research actually for such a small university. We are doing a lot of research on aquaculture, but also on evolutionary biology, following some natural populations of Arctic char. So Arctic char is the main species of interest in this country, and very interesting in that sense that Iceland is a very recent country with geologically speaking, and you can find some different populations of Arctic char in many different lakes at different levels of genetic divergence. So you can actually basically studying this population is a good way to study different evolutionary mechanisms. Comparing these populations will give you some insight into this evolutionary aspect. So that's quite fascinating to study these populations. And we do also a lot of ecological studies, monitoring of different lakes and stuff like that. And of course, we are actually offering different diploma, including undergraduate studies and graduate studies. We have these masters that Leanne is enrolled in, this masters in aquatic biology, mostly research-based, but we are also collaborating with 2 countries, Norway and Sweden, within this Marbio masters that is also about marine resources. And at the undergraduate level, we have also a very important diploma, because that's the only diploma in Iceland giving courses on aquaculture, and most of our students are already involved in the industry, and they come to take this diploma, 1-year diploma. Yeah, so that's pretty much maybe the essence of
that's very interesting, and I think it's very interesting that you said there's work or research and our education has been happening in the area since 1106, if I heard that correctly, which is astonishing. Just while we're on the topics of islands, I wonder, could you bring us any context or insight into what's happening, or has there been any observed changes in fish population species around the coast of Iceland over the last number of years, or effects of climate change, for example? Anything that you've been able to observe, just to bring context to the global picture, I guess.
As you know, the particularity of this country is the very low number of species. I'm not saying you have a lot of fish, but not many species. So when it comes to marine resources, of course, the first species that comes in mind, that's the cod, of course. And interestingly, the cod, has been experienced this drastic collapse in the 90s, and the Icelandic population remains quite high, and that's one of the main economic resource for Iceland. So the Icelandic cod population remains at a quite high level, and economically remains a very, very important resource. So it means that, and there is actually a good management of this population. So there is the Marine Research Institutes monitoring this cod population every year, and it seems to be going well. And they are, of course, giving the quotas for the fishing of this species. Apart from that, there are a few other species, but that are really not as important as the cod. And then, of course, we have these fresh water resources, very important in terms of diversity. And I'm not talking only about, when it comes to diversity, we always think of different species. But here in our lab, we emphasize the within species diversity, because we have these different morphs of Arctic char. If you go to one lake or another lake, you will find some fish that don't look the same, but they still belong to the same species. So that's what we call morphs, and that relates to what I said before, that's why it's so important in terms of evolution, these systems, because we can compare these morphs and make some conclusions about the evolutionary story of this species. So I really want to emphasize this within species diversity that we have in Iceland. To make it clear in simple words, that's just the beginning of the evolutionary process. So if you come back in Iceland in, I don't know, 20,000 years, it's likely that there will be new species that originate from this common ancestor that is this anadromous Arctic char.
Well, thank you very much for that invitation, David. I will definitely take up on it, and we can schedule our second podcast for 20,000 years' time. Or we might just do one next year, maybe, to follow up Leanne's work, which I hope will be a little bit more immediate, and we'll have a look at the development of hatcheries in around the Jamaican waters, development of the Jamaican aquaculture industry.
Right.
Which I guess is what the guts of this project is all about. So I mean, there's great collaboration between yourselves, Jamaica and Iceland, who are kind of leading the charge in it. And our shared ocean in Ireland, participation in this has facilitated your travel over and back from Iceland on a couple of occasions in order to facilitate those research visits and those brainstorming events and that live by learning things. So it's our hope that the skills that you acquire under David's tutelage there will be very beneficial once you're back working with the National Fisheries Authority in Jamaica, which is essentially what we're hoping our shared ocean can do, because we're in 3 different parts of the same Atlantic Ocean here. Which
Yes.
I find quite interesting. I know, Leanne, you're in Iceland at the moment. So listen, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Leanne, do you want to say anything just to wrap it up for us, or?
I wanted to emphasize that yes, I do have a passion for seeing Jamaican aquaculture, especially mariculture, grow exponentially, but also sustainably. I do believe that based on this project, if we get the preliminary information, then this will guide how we go forward. I wanted to say, and I see the screen here, I want to say thank you to all these persons. It's not a single person effort. This basically has entailed an entire plethora of persons who have been able to help me through encouragement to actually doing the research portion with me, to allowing me permission to be able to carry out this research, all of that. Big up yourself to the guys at Bowden B, Ian, Fanso, Shini. I want to say big thank you to Crystal, who has helped me completely. Gilly. I know when he hears that, he's going to be like, Leanne. But to the entire National Fisheries Authority, my parents, everybody, especially Yui as well, all those persons, they have helped me. And most importantly, to David for taking me under his wing and being my supervisor and guiding me through. Thank you. I didn't get the story about telling you how fisheries chose me. I didn't choose it. If I had my way, I would have been in elbow deep in a cow or a horse. However, just by a chance of having an interview at fisheries to be a pond operator, which is basically somebody who takes care of the ponds. And over the years, fisheries has grown on me. It's not something I chose. I think it was God ordained. He just saw where the potential was there. And I have to pick up God all the time for placing me in this field, because as the years went by, interesting things started to happen. People like Stacy and Gray, who helped to mold my interest in mariculture too, as a result of her fostering me to be part of her projects. And this is where it has led me to be where I am today. So there's so much to say, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who has had an extreme impact in my life and enabling me to study this topic. And I want to really see Jamaican aquaculture, especially mariculture, grow. I have a passion for it. When I go home, I want to sort out a few things. I want to see a hatchery. I want to see us actually being able to look at uh, induce spawning, maybe. These are just ideas that I'm throwing out there that have the potential to happen. I want to ensure that we will be able to look at different areas in the country where we can actually grow these oysters. And of course, hopefully be able to, because of the assessment of these areas, begin to create plans for zoning areas specifically for mariculture production of oysters. So it's a whole suite of things that I'd love to do. It's not just okay, I'm in it for the money. I'm actually really passionate, as you probably hear David say, he has to basically rein me in and control me. It's the same thing with my director, Mrs. Aris Michael. She sometimes has to rein me in because I have so many things going on and I'm so excited. But she has given me the ability to tell her these ideas and she guides me as well. So I want to say thank you to everybody, Kerun, Nadia. Thank you so much. That's pretty much it. We'd go on all day with this podcast, honestly. Oh yes, and shout out to my husband. How can I be here, a married woman, and don't pick up my husband? Honey, I love you. Thank you so much, Amar.
Oh, thank you very much for that, Leanne. Thank you. We're delighted to hear. We're delighted to hear about we're delighted to hear your enthusiasm for this work, and we hope it pays off. Our Shared Ocean, we're delighted to be involved in some small way to help with this story. We'd love to check in with you again.
Not a small way, David. That's I think the last acknowledgement should go to you, especially you, not only our Shared Ocean, but you in particular, because you have been very, very, very helpful, and you made the application process very easy to us, and you have shown a lot of flexibility, and we really appreciate that. And I think you contributed more than you think in this project. So thank you so much.
A whole lot more. You wouldn't understand the greatness that you have unleashed because of what you did with our Shared Ocean. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Leanne, and thank you very much, David. We'll leave it there. We will check up with you guys again in the next couple of weeks or months to find out your progress, and hopefully, as I said, we'll come back in next year to Jamaica and we'll see a hatchery. And if we can come back to Iceland in 20,000 years, maybe we'll see different species of chard. But until then, guys, good afternoon from Ireland. It was great to chat to you both, guys. And thanks very much for being part of our podcast today, Our Shared Ocean podcast. Guys, you can check us out at oursharedocean.ie. There'll be further stories and updates about our calls. And we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
The Our Shared Ocean podcast is a funding initiative by the Government of Ireland through Irish Aid and managed by the Marine Institute. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find more like it. Subscribe, rate, and review on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Are you a marine scientist or student based in a small island developing state? Would you like to tell us about your research? Visit www.oursharedocean.ie and we'll see you in the next episode.